How's it going, everybody? I'm Ryan, he's Abhi, we're the Expansion Bros, and welcome back. I hope everybody had a happy holidays, because I know the Sabres sure did. They went into the holiday season with a win and came out with a win. We'll touch on that in a minute, but Abhi, how are things over there on the West Coast, my friend?
They're all right. They're all right. We're kind of like me in real life right now. We're just getting by, getting to the new year, hoping for some consistency in the new year. But overall, things are okay.
We'll take that. I mean, it's better than just flaming out, right? Like just being at the bottom, being in an absolute rut, it sucks, but we're out of it. The Sabres are. Hopefully you bounce back to the top, and so do the Vancouver Canucks. But I guess, obviously first things first, the Sabres, we were talking about how their season's over, how it's awful. Pagula needs to sell the team. All these guys suck. The famous it's not famous, but the quote I dropped about how good the players are playing. And all of a sudden, they bounce back with a 7-1 win over the New York Islanders, and they follow it up with a 6-2 win over the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, neither of those teams are all that good. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush here, right? The Islanders are 25th in the league, and the
Buffalo
Blackhawks
has
are
more
actually,
wins than Chicago does as well.
yeah. So it's not like either of those two teams are dominant, and they really just it's not like they went out and boat raced the Vegas Golden Knights or the New Jersey Devils or something like that, right? But
Yeah.
you had dominant wins against teams you should be beating, and really that's what I want to see. The season's like I caught myself. I was preparing for this podcast, and I was like, oh man, maybe it's like no. Don't do that. Don't let
Don't
yourself
do
get
that to
any
yourself.
kind of expectations about the wild card and oh, they're only 8 points behind Ottawa, and there's still over half the season to go, and yada yada yada. Like, listen, guys, we're still last place in the East, but it's just nice to see them bounce back, and some of their hard work is starting to pay off. Right? We talked in the last one about over the 13 game losing streak. They had the most high danger chances for in the NHL at 5-on-5. And I think they finally started to bury some of those chances. They're no longer hitting the goalie's chest or missing wide, right? They're starting to actually pick their spots. And even though not every shot is perfect, I'm really enjoying some of the plays I'm seeing. They are tape-to-tape passes, some really backdoor redirects. Zach Benson's goal is one that comes to mind where great feed, back post. I mean, he's just left wide open there. Like nobody's on that side of the ice for the Chicago Blackhawks. And he just redirects it into the net after a really, really hard pass. I forgot who passed it to him. I think it might have been Darlene, but either way, it's just great to see them make the good plays and then do the right thing. I mean, come on. They've missed the net. They shoot to the crest. You're not going to win games like that.
No, I agree, and I think the big thing about the first one of the Islanders, obviously, gotta give them a round of applause. Finally, the losing streak is over. But also, I know the Islanders aren't exactly a barn burner, but they did put up what is it? I know they had the one empty net goal, which I remember you sent me on Messenger, and I was like, oh yeah, he's just showing me the Sabres aren't blowing it. And then did a little bit of a double take, like, wait a minute, they pulled the goalie with friggin' 11 minutes left in the friggin' third period. But
The Patrick
which
Waugh
was
special.
yeah, but they put up 6 goals on Sorokin. I mean, and I know their defense isn't maybe what it used to be, but you still got Noah Dobson, you still got Ryan Pulock, Adam Pelech, Scott Mayfield, Romanov. Like, this is a pretty stout defensive core with Sorokin in net, and you put up 7 goals. This is not insignificant for a team that struggled to finish. Um, Putting up 7 goals on a stout defensive unit with an elite goaltender, that's a really, really good sign. And I don't want to be that guy, but I think a lot of us remember how the St. Louis Blues were the year they won the cup. They weren't doing so hot in the standings in the mid-year. Again, don't get on the hopium; it will only hurt you. But no, it's a very, very encouraging. It's a real sign of life moment for the Sabres, and I think obviously it's exciting to break the streak, but then to also follow it up and, as you said, Ryan, kind of do what you're supposed to do. The best teams do what they're supposed to do. They beat down on bad opponents. And again, the Sabres are not one of the best teams at the moment, but if they want to have some respectability to their season, this is what they need to do. They need to continue beating up on the Chicagos. They need to beat up on the teams in their division as well, like Detroit, Montreal, who are down there and not having great seasons. Beat up on the other teams in the East who they're going to see this year, like again, the Islanders they beat, the Rangers, who, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize they were doing that bad. Holy crap! The Flyers, the Blue Jackets, all these teams that aren't doing so well, as long as they're beating on them, they're gonna have a better season and have that bounce back and really be able to play with some pride.
And that's the thing. You mentioned about all these other teams that are floundering. That's kind of what makes this little glimmer of hope here so much more frustrating. You pick up maybe 50%, 40% of the points over that 13 game losing streak rather than just dropping every single game, basically, minus the 3 you lost in overtime. And we're talking about a team that's in a playoff spot right now. They pick up 4 wins on that 13 game losing streak. They're tied with Ottawa right now on points. And I'm not asking for them to go, oh, instead of 10-3, they go 7-2-1. No.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying instead of 10-3, go 4-6-3. That's not good, but you're in a playoff spot.
It's well below 500. Yeah. High expectations.
And that's all we needed. And it's just like, I'm hoping that Lindy Ruff can help change the culture, because one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is trying to compare it to football. Right, I think I have got a lot more knowledge about the way to roster build in football, and because I watched the Bills do it, so I have a firsthand example of how exactly the right way to build a roster is. Now they haven't won a Super Bowl, but they're always up there, and I would take that from the Sabres right now, is to be always up there. And you look at a team, just to switch topics here quickly, is like the Chicago Bears. They have all this talent, right? Their offensive line is decent, and they've got Caleb Williams, a number 1 overall pick. They've got a good backfield with Roshan Johnson and especially DeAndre Swift. And then you look at the wide receivers and pass catchers they got for their rookie wide receiver, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is a great pass-catching tight end. So they have talent, and their defense is actually a really stout unit against the pass, not against the run, but, it's a work in progress. You didn't expect them to be a Super Bowl contender, but the things are rotten to the core there. And rather than an X's and O's guy, they need a culture guy. Look at the Lions with Dan Campbell. Look at the Bills with Sean McDermott. You get these guys in there that aren't necessarily, Sean McDermott is a great defensive mind, but you look at them and they're not like the Andy Reids of the world or the Sean McVays of the world. They're more of the tone setters, and the Bills have established an amazing culture. The Lions have an amazing culture. And I really think that's what the Sabres need to do right now. They have the talent, and I really want to see the talent come through. So I think if Lindy Ruff, you look at him less as an X's and O's guy, and, I'm looking at all these advanced analytics, and it looks like the Sabres we're used to with a slightly different twist here and there. But I really think the culture is what's important right now. And you can't put your finger on culture, or momentum, right? There's those things that are intangibles that you never get to touch. You never get to acquire. You don't pay for, yes, you can pay for it, but you get guys with those intangibles, but you can't measure it on the stat sheet. But you need to change the culture, and so be it. You have a 0.8% chance to make the playoffs. I don't care. Go out there and miss it by 3 points at this point. Go out there and play on a phenomenal pace. That's what they need to do right now. And as easy it is for me to phone it in because they're done and it's not even the new year, I really think we need to start focusing and talking, every week when you and I sit down. It's going to be, how is Jack Quinn doing? How is Dylan Cousins doing? How is Owen Power looking? Is Matthias Samuelsson growing a little bit? Is Tage on pace for 40, maybe 50 goals? Does Tuck look more like that first liner rather than a second liner, right? We need to see these guys start to shift into that conversation rather than, oh, hey, they need to pick up 12 of the next 16 points to be on the right pace.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Focusing on the individual players. And I love the example you use of the Detroit Lions, where when a coach brings culture, it doesn't matter how good the team is. That team with the Detroit Lions, I remember that first year they had Dan Campbell. They had a crazy losing streak. And there was all these games. I remember there was one game they lost on Justin Tucker's 67-yard field goal. The
longest field goal in NFL history, by the way.
Exactly. That kind of crazy miracle. Bounces off the freaking crossbar and in. That happens, and you could tell the way, you could even just tell from the press conference the way he's like, I feel for my guys. You could tell Dan Campbell was like a very player orientated coach and also a big toughness guy. And you could tell, like, even like after that horrible season, you could tell from like people in the Detroit community, they were all like, I'm willing to run through a wall for this guy. And you can see it in the players. You can see players like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who maybe could go to a different team and get more yards, right? But he's out there blocking, trying to help his team, right? Because that's the culture. That's a perfect example of when you have the right coach and you have the right mentality, how it siphons down to your players. And I totally agree. Hopefully, Lindy Ruff can be that guy, and there can be that kind of comparison to where Detroit had that awful season, that long losing streak, and then with the right coach, they shifted it, and look at them now. They're probably going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Hopefully, something similar here for Buffalo. They've had their losing streak. They've probably, hopefully, hit rock bottom. And it's only up from here. So if they can use this opportunity to, build culture, this team, change exactly what has meant to be a Buffalo Sabre over the last few years, and then head into next year, I think it's looking really, really bright, which is why, like you said, Ryan, it makes sense. Focus on each individual player, see how their game is developing, maybe where they need some more help, and then see, like, as the season goes on, what acquisitions are made into the draft, where you're going, and then really, really setting up for that next year after the culture has been shifted, after we see the individual player progression, what the Buffalo Sabres are really going to be going into the near and then eventually the long-term future.
And, I really think culture is all we want to talk about, but I do want to just bring up the math. The Sabres, I really think 92 points might get you in with this Eastern Conference right now. I mean, yeah, Ottawa's at 38 out of 34 so far, which is a 559. If you take a 559, hold on, let me do it really quickly. 559 times 164 possible points, you get 91, 92. So I think that's probably enough to get you in. The Sabres, we need to get 62 points from the remaining 46 games. That's a 67-ish% win percentage. So listen, even if they play at like a 56 to 60% pace at this point, right? People are going to get their hopes up, maybe a puck bounce here or there, and we're going to look back at December and be like, why does this keep happening? But I think, if anything, we talk about, Elliot Friedman and all these guys in the TSN and the Steve Dangle podcast and all these national people. I've been listening to a lot of Canadian media recently, and they're all talking about how the Sabres are trying to develop players in the NHL rather than letting them develop in minors or juniors or wherever. I'd argue that JJ Peterka and Quinn were ready, and we could even see some signs of both of them being NHL ready. I think it was Steve Merrick was mentioning that, Quinn kind of disappeared in the playoffs. That's probably a guy that needed more time. I'm like, I don't know if him having a great season as a teenager in the AHL and then not doing well in the playoffs is exactly a sign that he needed more time to develop. Yeah. But you look at it and, well, if these guys can learn what it takes to win, and even if it doesn't reward them with the playoffs, I think we need to see Jack Quinn have a good season. We need to see Dylan Cousins get back to what he was when they signed the contract for him. Jack Quinn is a guy that's been on a heater, right? He's been hot. He's been scratched too, right? So he's been scratched. Now he's hot. He scored, in a couple games straight now. He's got 11 points in 29 games played. Nowhere near good enough. But you take a look and you're like, okay, well, he's probably got 46 games left. See if he can get 30 points in those 46 games. Then you're like, okay, we have a second line. Because if I'm going to sit here as a Sabres fan and say, what has been the Sabres issue? It's been the depth scoring. Like, that second line has completely dissolved and disappeared, and nobody's put up points outside of Tage Thompson, Tuck, and Peterka on the top line. And even Peterka is now in his own head with how bad things have been going, and hopefully he's getting out of it now with a couple points, assists on Quinn goals. And Lindy's doing his best to spark the lines, but the thing for the Sabres is they don't have a second line worth that can score, right? And again, Here we go. I'm going to talk about Connor Garland. He is exactly the kind of player that the Buffalo Sabres need. And you're probably getting a little annoyed at this point of how much I talk about Connor Garland on this podcast as a reference, but he did just score today. So there you go. There's depth scoring, if you will.
We're going to see here.
Yeah, we're
I've been
recording.
following the Canucks game.
We're recording during the Canucks Kraken game, FYI,
There we
to the
go,
listeners.
2-1,
So it's
baby.
2-1. Thanks to Connor Garland. But the thing is, you've got your Pedersens and Millers, and we'll talk about them in a bit, and your Bessers and DeBrusque. But like, you need your top 6 to score. And Abby, you were surprised when I mentioned, hey, Tage Thompson's absolutely nuts as far as goal scoring this year, but the points aren't there, and the rest of the team isn't scoring. And they brought up a graphic last night on ESPN, and I think it'll be a really good conversation that we can get into maybe at a later date. But they said, like, I think it was 30% of all Sabres points. So the Sabres have had 285 points registered this year. 30% of those have come from defensemen, which is the most in the NHL, I believe. And
Dahlin's been up there.
Yeah, Dahlin's been great too, right? And I've got a Dahlin stat for you here in just a second. But you look at the Sabres hierarchy of points, and you've got Tuch, Thompson, Peterka. Before last night, it was Zucker in 4th. After last night, Dahlin's in 4th, and you're okay with that. But then it's Zucker, Power, Byram. I feel like you should definitely have more than just Jason Zucker in that order, right? And I haven't backed this up with any actual analysis, and I'm just looking at it, and it doesn't feel right that 3 of your top 7 point getters are defensemen. And it's good that we've got good defensemen, and that's one of the things Buffalo has a ton of is Byram, Power, and Dahlin, 3 amazing offensive left-handed defensemen. Something most teams don't have one of. I know Vancouver has one, and he's the elite of the elite, but a lot of teams don't have that.
No, definitely.
But I would say you probably would want another forward to bump Power out of 6th place on your team, right? Because Power's not playing top minutes. He's not playing with Dahlin, so I don't know. It leaves a little bit to be desired, and we'll talk about roster construction there. But I'll get your take on that, and then maybe give you the Dahlin stat.
Yeah, so just gonna go back to Jack Quinn for a second. So Jack Quinn this year is 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. So okay. Now it should be noted, 80% of his goals came over the last 5 games.
4 of his 5 in the last. He's got 4 goals in the last 5.
Yeah, and on top of that, that would also be about 54.5% of his points have come over the last 5 games as well. So, as you said, he's been on a heater recently, which is great news because Jack Quinn is one of those younger players you do want to see, get on a heater and start picking up his game. On top of that, too, I know we looked at the acquisitions for the Sabres over the summer, and Jason Zucker was one of the guys who was very underwhelming as well, and he's doing very well, as you said. So, that's another positive. But ultimately, the basic things we're taught as kids when we're learning hockey, it's the forward's jobs to go and score. It's the defender's job to help the goalie protect the puck, and it's the goalie's job to make the saves. If the forwards are not doing the very basic job of the group, then that's a problem. If your forwards are not scoring, you're just not going to win hockey games. It's not a sustainable model to have your defensemen put up 30% of your points. I don't care if you have Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar back there. You still need forwards to go and score the freaking goals.
Yeah, the guys closest to the net are the guys you expect to be putting up your points, right? Exactly. And I love having defensemen that can drive play. I think that's kind of where the league is trending, and you need these defensemen that can jump in, and it's a 4-on-3, 4-on-2 kind of thing. Activate your defenseman in the offensive zone, but the Sabres problem is it's deeper than just the box score too, because it would be great if we had Makar and Hughes and Dahlin, and that's the reason. And, everybody was going, everybody was, we had everybody above a point per game, and our second line was at a point per game, but we had defensemen above a point. Right. So the second line just hasn't stepped up, and it's completely taken the bottom out of this roster. Right. And this is something when we bought out Jeff Skinner that a lot of people were worried about. And well, Jeff Skinner's not the answer, but they didn't go out and get an answer is the thing, right? Jeff Skinner does more negative to your roster than positive with his lack of defensive effort. Yeah, maybe. Listen, I don't want to dunk on Jeff Skinner. I like him a lot. I think he's a good hockey player, and I feel bad that he's never played a playoff game. But at the same time, like, you got to be a two-way guy. And speaking of two-way guys, Yuri Kulik has really impressed me in that regard. Now, he's not getting the points, but he's playing like third line center for us right now. And he's looking really, really good. And I'm hoping that another guy to add to the watch list. Let's just make a watch list, Abby. After this, let's just sit down, make a watch list. We got Quinn and Cousins. We'll add Kulik there. We'll add Owen Power. Maybe we'll add the goaltenders. I don't know, but there's definitely reasons to watch Sabres games. And it's not necessarily for the wins and losses. So I'm not going to get hung up on that. And the tracker and, are they playing at a 67-point pace since we last spoke, Abby? Now, I mean, I might do that for a little bit here and there just to say, hey, it's not happening because, winning can change the culture too. But
absolutely. No, I think that's something that'll be fun for us to track. I think if you want to make sure you're following the Expansion Bros podcast on X, and if you want to make sure, if you're watching our podcast on YouTube, if you want to comment about that, I'd be happy to start a tracker in the comments or start some discourse in the comments or on Twitter. Go ahead and tweet us at Expansion Bro. Let me get the exact handle, actually.
Yeah. In the meantime, do you want to hear this crazy Darlene stat for you?
Yes, sorry, 1 second. So our exact handle is at Expansion Bros. So please tweet us with your updates on our watch list here or any other players you want us to add to our watch list. But yes, please hit us that Dahlin stat.
So the Buffalo Sabres record with Rasmus Dahlin in the lineup, 13-13-2.
This season.
Yep.
13-13-2. That's
the Buffalo Sabres record without Rasmus Dahlin in the lineup, 0-6-2.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh damn!
And I was
like, that sounds okay, And then I realized, oh god, wait, you guys are way below 500. Wait a damn minute.
Yeah, where did it come from? And that's exactly where it is. And you look at the 13-game losing streak. I don't think it's a 13-game losing streak. Like, I don't think that we're much better with Dahlin, but clearly we're not sitting rock bottom if Dahlin is healthy. And it's just, you don't want to lean on one dude. The bottom can't fall out when Dahlin doesn't play 25 minutes a night. That just can't be a sustainable way to do it. And it's part of the reason that we still need more from Quinn, Cousins, Kulik, and Peterka, and like those young guns, right? We know the established Tage Thompson and Tuck. They're going to get theirs, and I'd like to see more out of them, but I think it'll all snowball, right? If that second line gets going, that top line gets more goals, the defense get more points, the Sabres win more games, right? It's kind of one of those things. It snowballs, but
I think you've seen the perfect model again. I know we make a lot of, it's the Expansion Bros podcast, so we make a lot of comparisons between the Canucks and the Sabres, but that's exactly what you talk about, right? When you have two lines with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, right? You have two lines that aren't always going, but usually at least one of them is going, if not both. It gives you that kind of security. And again, that means that even though I know the Canucks have been riding Quinn Hughes to the point where he's actually out this game, both him and Pettersson were out this game.
Potential trade incoming?
I sure hope not. Pettersson just had a 2-goal game. I hope we're not shipping him off. When you can't afford to ride your defenseman like that, especially early in the season, because I know for the Sabres, maybe it's not so much of a concern this year, but potentially next year, if you're working your defenseman anywhere from like 25 to 28 minutes a night, it's going to catch up to them by the time playoffs come around. So that's just something to watch out for. And you also, again, just don't want to be so dependent on any one player, even with the Oilers, right? They had like 50 goals from Zach Hyman last year, right? Not so much this year, but you don't want to be dependent on just one player to do everything. You want to have waves of attack. There's a reason Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is still around all these years, right? It's because he's a reliable point scorer for them. As long as you can have those waves, right? And then, as you said, right, every team is starting to try to look for these puck-moving defensemen. See the new age, like Evan Bouchards and stuff like that, right? Gustav Forsling, all these guys. It's very simple. Forwards produce, defensemen move the puck, also help produce. It's very much. It reminds me a little bit of how the shift towards 3-point shooting and layups in basketball, where you're not abandoning, the mid-range, but it's less efficient. Same thing here in the NHL, right? Like, it's good if your defenders play defense, right, and your forwards score. But what if your defenders can also help you score? They can't forget about the defense because that's their core responsibility. but focusing more on the high value plays, right? Maybe your offensive defensemen give up a goal or two more, but if they help you produce three more goals, it's more efficient. And obviously that can backfire, right? Where you have defensemen giving away turnovers and you lose games because of the high offense style. Same thing, you see in the NBA. So you can go 0 for 10 from three when you could have taken a mid ranger that had a better percentage chance of going in or something like that. But uh, I think with all sports, we're seeing this kind of change towards efficiency, and it makes sense. It's with analytics and all these things coming in. It makes sense that teams are trying to do what's best here. And if the Sabres want to kind of follow that trend, right? Again, we talked about this so many times. They have the personnel to do it. And now starting to see players like Jack Quinn get on the right track. That's a really, really good sign. You have a whole year this year. Again, everyone's already said this year's, like Ryan, you said, it's not even the new year and the season's over. This is their opportunity to really build towards that next season, next year, and make sure that they do have the offensive firepower to score goals and maybe take some of that weight off Dahlin and the rest of the defensive core and have more of those forwards. It's fine if your defenseman is your first, second, third, right? But you don't want, as you said, the defenseman filling up so much of your top six scorers.
And you mentioned the shift towards efficiency and how you don't necessarily want defensemen to get a ton of points. Let's be honest, most goals in the NHL are going to be scored from high danger areas. That's why they're called high danger chances, right? They're very dangerous when you get a chance there. You're more likely to score there than a shot from the point. And that's why you need your forwards to be the ones driving into that area. And yes, the defensemen can help move the puck. And their defensemen, to me, are more facilitators, less play drivers. I know you can have them drive play. And what I mean by drive play is to create and set up chances in the offensive zone and to carry between the zones and really just, they're the ones that when they're on the ice, the team they pull them with a rubber band, right? They pull them in the offensive zone and then they can get the puck back out, right? And the team kind of stretches around that player. Listen, it's over, right? Season's over. I'm not even going to try. Like, we'll set up that stuff on X and keep a little bit of a tracker in the back of our mind. They need to win every 2 out of 3 games here. I think even hotter than that. So it's a lot, but I'd like to see them do it, get on a little bit of a run, because I'm not used to seeing like 4 wins in a row and then a loss and then maybe an overtime loss and then 3 more wins in a row. Like, I don't usually see that in the box score. Usually it's like 2 wins, 5 losses, 1 win, 3 losses, that kind of thing. And it just gets depressing after a while. But speaking of, all that depression has led to good things for the Buffalo Sabres' future. The future's so bright, Abhi. There are 6 Buffalo Sabres at this year's World Juniors. And I just wanted to throw a shout out because I have really, really enjoyed watching the World Juniors. The hockey is fun. It's fast. There's dangles, there's crisp plays, and honestly, for somebody that watched the 13-game losing streak, it was a breath of fresh air to me and actually kind of did reinvigorate me, lit a little bit more of a fire underneath me to watch more hockey and consume more content. It was a lot of entertaining things happening, like Latvia beating Canada. That was really, really entertaining. Oh. I loved that. That was very fun for me.
I'm so glad the Canadians left 4 of their best prospects, on the off the roster. It was like Sinecki, Yamarchuk, a couple other guys. I'm trying to think. Who's the big guy? They're forgetting someone huge. And then watching Toronto's prospect Easton Cowan take shit shot after shit shot. I think there was 10 shot attempts he took where, like, one of them, I know there was a wide open Michael Misa on the back door, and he's just like, I'm just gonna shoot it. I know he got it. I think Cowan got an assist, but it's just like,
it's not smart hockey. It's not efficient, right? And we'll have this argument, and well, I guess you and I are on the same page, so we won't argue, but we'll have this conversation later when we talk about the 4 Nations roster leaving Cole Caulfield and Tage Thompson off the roster in favor of guys like Brock Nelson. Good Lord. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It's not even like they were having good seasons when they got picked. All right. Time out. Yeah. We're talking about the World Juniors. There are 6 Sabres at the World Juniors. 2 of them playing for Team USA. Adam Kleber, the right-hand defenseman, a second-round pick of this past year's draft, 2024. Brody Zeimer as well, the right wing, third-round pick this year, playing for Team USA. Then they've got Anton Wahlberg for Team Sweden. He's a center. He is second-round pick last year, 2023. Konsta Helenius is playing for Finland. He was this year's first-round pick, and he's he's really looked good. Finland's looked a little bit shaky as a team, and I think they're feeling a lot of weight and of expectations and pressure, and things have not been going well for Team Finland as of late at these kinds of tournaments. So I think there's a lot going on there, but Hellenius definitely looks like one of the best players on that team and one of the best players at the tournament. Then you've got Maxim Sturbak, the right-handed defenseman from Slovakia, a second-round pick last year. He's awesome. He's like 6'2", a really smooth skating, puck-moving defenseman, and right-handed, right? So we talk about who can step up on the right side for Buffalo, and I'm thinking it might be Maxim Sturbak here in a year or two. Obviously, you want to let him develop, though. He's playing, I believe, at Michigan State as well. So if you could catch some NCAA hockey, that would be awesome. And then Norwin Panoka, the left-handed defenseman, 7th-round pick in 2023, playing for Team Germany. And Team Germany is obviously a little bit undermanned here, but Panoha has looked good, and I really enjoyed it. Hellenius got a point against Germany. Sturbak played 25 minutes for Slovakia against Switzerland. The Sabres website, by the way, there's a Sabres news, how to watch the Buffalo Sabres at the 2025 World Juniors. They're updating every game with like how the Sabres players are doing. So, for example, Sweden's 8-1 win over Kazakhstan. Wahlberg had 2 goals and 2 assists for a game-high 4 points, and they have 2 clips from TSN on X. Right, and then you can see the upcoming games for each of the Sabres players. So if you don't have time to watch every game in the tournament, Latvia versus USA is happening right now. USA's up 4-0. Certainly not going to let a juggernaut like Latvia hang around. I know they take down some of the top teams in the world all the time, and that was a very, very close matchup for Canada. I know everybody going into that one expected that one to be tight, but there's a bunch of games happening this holiday season, so go ahead and check them out. I got to get my digs in for Team Canada now before the Four Nations tournament, before they wipe the floor with Team USA, who made the same mistakes that Team Canada Juniors did this time. So I'm going to get my digs in now, Abhi. I hope you enjoy them for the next week because they're coming back at me for the Four Nations. I'm sure of it.
We'll see if the Canadian goaltenders can make a save. We'll see if I get to have any digs in on you.
That team doesn't need goaltending, dude. If you saw that Four Nations roster, that thing is ridiculous. That blue line is insane.
Yeah, and we can have some debates on that. I know there was someone put together a second team of Canadian players who looked like they could be competitive as well, like the Bouchard, Mackenzie Weegar, I think wasn't on the team. There was a number of players who probably could have even made the team on top of that, and there was some debate on that internally. But no, it's definitely a solid team. On the World Junior front, the Canucks also have 3 players, and all for different teams, actually. The usual Sweden is represented by Tom Willander, the Canucks' first-round pick from last year. So he actually scored a pretty nice goal against Canada, which was very cool. That was last year. So we'll see how. I haven't been super intact with this year. But he was kind of. I think he kind of played second fiddle to Axel Sandy and Palika last year. So we'll see if he gets a bigger role this year. And on top of that, we also have another 7th-round pick representing a bit of an underdog team from the Canucks side, Basil Sassons, who was a 7th-round pick from the Canucks. He'll be representing Switzerland, so he's a kind of a big defenseman that's known for like kind of being physical and kind of he's good at like munching minutes. Those defensemen that is like minute munchers. Like Drew Doughty back in the day. It's kind of one of those defensemen. And then the Canucks fans probably more familiar with this defenseman, Sawyer Minio, representing Canada. He was a mid-round pick for the Canucks. 3rd-round pick, from 2023, born in BC as well, which we love to see. So definitely not, outside of Willander, not the Canucks' most prominent prospects, but definitely exciting to see that, there is still some level of depth to this prospect pool. There's definitely been times the Canucks prospect pool is barren, and I'm certainly not saying we have a covenant of riches here. But
not like us.
Yes, exactly. But it's nice to see a couple people, out there representing their country, and hopefully, these kind of tournaments can be a big boost of confidence for players to help the development. So hopefully we see that both for the Canucks and the Sabres.
Yeah, you don't want to go through what I had to go through to be able to say that. So be okay with like 2 or 3 7th-rounders at the World Juniors, and then just cheer on the nations, because having 6 guys and 5 of them are first, seconds, or thirds, that's pretty telling of the state of your organization. So we're hoping that those guys win a little bit and can turn it around here. But the Vancouver Canucks, good segue, Abby. Very proud of you for getting that one in there. All right, let's talk about Vancouver. And since we last spoke, 2 games have been played: an overtime loss to the Ottawa Senators and a 4-3 victory in regulation over the San Jose Sharks, who are doing everything you want from a rebuilder right now. They're young guys, look good. Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini looks great.
Looks hot.
I doubted Celebrini. I'm like, I don't know. He just doesn't look like he's got the it factor. But man, he was one of those guys that was ready to step in right away out of college and come to the pros. But this is not a San Jose Sharks pod. This is a Vancouver Canucks pod, and the Vancouver Canucks came out on top, and they are currently on top of the Seattle Kraken 3-1.
Another one.
I believe Besser's second goal of the game here. So there you go. So hopefully, by the time people are listening to this, it's another Vancouver Canucks victory, which would give you 5 points out of your last 6, which is what you guys need to be doing. Obviously, the West is really tight. You look at the standings in the West, and Vancouver right now would be 3rd place in the Atlantic, pushing for Florida's place if you just sort by points percentage. And it's going to be tough, right? I mean, when you've got teams like the Dallas Stars as a wild card, and you know, LA is playing as well as they are, they've started to, you know, start to turn a corner here. So Vancouver, really rocky start, but things are starting to stabilize as you get healthier. So fill me in a bit more on the nitty gritty of what's happening over there in Vancouver.
Yeah, so the big thing, obviously, that Canucks fans have been talking about is a bit of this quote-unquote JT Miller, Elias Pettersson beef. They both come out separately and squashed it to the point where JT Miller also said, like, he's like, during his press conference, hey, we can bring PD out here right now and straighten this all out. There's no issue. So I think what's happened here is a bit of a toxic media culture where there's probably a small issue between them, but it's been so blown out of proportion for the media's sake. And I think, you know, the fans don't want this. You know, I know a lot of times people blame the Canucks fans. Oh, Canucks fans are so bad, but this is one where I don't really see the fans jumping all over this. You know, JT Miller gets chants all the time throughout the crowd. The game, PD got 2 goals after his first goal. He was getting a PD chant in the arena when he scored his second goal. You know, these fans, for their credit, have been not very toxic and have been cheering on the players and have been pushing for them. So yeah, it sounds like it's coming to a wind down, which is good. And hopefully Pettersson isn't out too long. He actually got injured in that game where he scored his 2 goals. But hopefully he can recover in time. That's why him and Hughes are out today. But overall, I think things in Canucks land are starting to just settle down. The beef has settled down. The players are starting to get healthy. Hopefully Pettersson, Hughes, okay. And I think we've had Demko back now, who's been playing well. We're starting to get back to the land of stability. So I think especially as we get Hronik back in the new year, things can really settle down. And I'm starting to feel pretty good about how the Canucks are playing. They definitely have their gaffes and their mistakes. And there's a couple times where Miller, especially in the games before these, was not so great about his defensive awareness. But I think overall the Canucks are playing well enough offensively. And when they get their defenseman back and actually have healthy defensemen, because right now, who's their best defenseman right now? Who's playing in this game
today? I was going to say, did you have to ask? Because it's Quinn Hughes. I was kind of concerned that you asked that question.
They have Carson Soucy, Eric Brandstrom, Vinny Desharnais, Derek Forbert, Noah Juleson, and Tyler Myers.
The PDO god, Carson Soucy.
So I think Tyler Myers is our best defenseman playing today. So
I'm pounding the drum for Carson Soucy.
Carson Soucy. Okay, so we can have that debate in the comments. Is Carson Soucy or Tyler Myers the best Canucks defenseman that is playing against the Kraken today? Please let us know in the comments section below. It'll be tomorrow or day after if it is, but please let us know. I think once we get to, like, our team healthy enough, I think everything's going to be okay. I was definitely a little worried there for a bit. With the team chemistry and all that. But I think as we've seen everything settle down, we've seen the players come out and talk about it. And can I say, what a choice of Quinn Hughes to be the captain of this team. He's handled everything with class and backed it up 20-fold with his play. So I'm feeling very comfortable with the Vancouver Canucks right now as we settle into everything. I'm I don't even need us to be the 1 seed or the 2 seed. I know we'll make a playoff spot, and we make the playoffs, we have a really good chance to make some noise. So that's always comforting. Now where I'm focused on is who are the potential acquisitions that we're going to make? Can we go get Marcus Pettersson? Can we go get some other defensive help? And what are the Canucks going to give up to go do that? That's kind of where my head is at now. How is Hoglander going to do with Tocchet's doghouse? He had a really, really good game in Columbus, and he had a good game, not Columbus, sorry, against the Sharks, and he had a good game, I believe, in Ottawa as well. So hopefully he's getting out of Tocchet's doghouse, because again, that's a potential bottom 6 20 goal scorer, right? Could move up in the lineup as well. So that's kind of where my focus is now. Much like how you were mentioning, looking at kind of individual Sabres players for how they're going to progress for next year. I'm looking at individual Canucks players to see what's their status. Are they going to be able to stick around for this team in the playoffs and into the future? Or is this someone who's potentially trade bait to, get us some defensive help?
And personally, for me, I'm looking more at the team as a whole. I know you want to look at the nitty gritty and the individual players and whatnot. But for me, over here, I look at Vancouver, and I'm actually kind of concerned for what's happening in Vancouver. I look at the analytics, and nothing looks good, yet you guys are still in a playoff spot. So one of two things has to happen. Either your analytics improve to match the record, and the team looks better because of it, or your record regresses to match the analytics. I think one of the two has to happen, and I believe as players get healthy, right? Filip Hronek skated yesterday as of recording and is still expected to be back by the end of January, right? You got plenty of time left there. Hronek, get Hughes healthy. Pettersson, right? Get healthy, figure it out, squash this beef, and the team will play better, because we saw it last year. The team was flying, and it's not like, well, too much has changed. The blue line is different. That's, like you said, we'll talk about possible acquisitions, and it'll be nice to actually look up players to be acquired who we don't have to worry about no trade clauses for, most likely, because I look at a player when I look at like potential Sabres, who can help save the Sabres, and I see a no trade clause, and I'm like, nope, just X him off the list. You'd be surprised how many players across the league have no movement clauses or no trade clause. It's crazy. But here's something to make you feel warm and fuzzy. As far as high danger chances for, right? We want to create more high quality chances. The Sabres are at 23rd. Snuggled up right next to them are the Vancouver Canucks at 22nd. So
there we go. We passed you guys.
It's not looking great there. And then you talk about expected goals. I'm now going to go over to Evolving Hockey, that was previously from Natural Stat Trick. Evolving Hockey's expected goals for percentage. The Sabres are in 24th. Canucks, little bit of room there for Jesus, 21st. So you guys are right where we are, and yet we're at the bottom of the East, and you're playing at a 60% points percentage. And honestly, I think it does come down to culture and winning. And, you guys have been getting what you need. You've got a bit more star power that can drag the team here and there. And as you get healthier, obviously Demko being back, that's going to be a big boost. Obviously these stats don't factor in goaltending at all. So shout out Lankinen. Probably half the reason you guys are where you are. But God expected goals. Expected goals are expected until they meet Thatcher Demko, right? And then they're no longer expected to be goals. And then high danger chances, I don't think Demko's really driving high danger chances for. So, or high danger chances against. He's we talk about defensemen not driving play. Let's see Demko get out there and do it. I bet he could.
Patrick Waugh dangle to the red line.
Yeah, exactly. But I need to see a little bit more. You guys are still doing well. You're getting the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the actual goals scored, expected goals scored. You guys, can we entertain the people here? Buy tickets and entertain the people. You guys are worse than the Sabres in expected goals for, according to Evolving Hockey. So that's not great. But and your expected goals against, well, those are really good. You are ranked 7th in expected goals against. So a very defensive-minded hockey team. And I think maybe that's something that, while it's winning and while it's working, that's going to win you games in the playoffs, right? You look at a team like Toronto. They made the change to Berube. And yes, they're still a great regular season team. We know that, but it feels different this year because the defense and the goaltending and the analytics suggest they've got a lot to bank on, right? Not only are they good as teams on the defense, but their offensive players can still take over games. Matthews, Marners, Nylander, Tavares. And you look at the Vancouver Canucks, it's the same thing. your team defense can win you games, and not to mention you also have a elite goaltender back there, but you've got Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, Connor Garland, Brock Besser, Jake DeBrusk, all these guys that can go score goals. That you need that to happen in the playoffs. So yes, Florida was kind of the jack of all trades when they won it last year, but really I think Vancouver figure out the defense, get the goal scoring to drag them along, right? You're a little bit in the middle of the pack right now. Get that a little bit higher. And I think that really does have to do with talent, right? You're missing the impact of Filip Hronek a ton. And I think this team, we talk about what trade deadline acquisitions can the Canucks make to improve their blue line. It's like Filip Hronek. Now, a little bit more, please, but Filip Hronek coming back is going to be a great boost.
Oh yeah. No, he's their second best defenseman. Yeah, like there's no sugarcoating it. Like
I don't know, Carson Soucy, man.
Carson Soucy goes good and bad. I think there was a good portion of this season where people were literally calling us the Vancouver Quinn Hugheses. Like Quinn Hughes was carrying this team to relevance for a chunk of the season, and Carson Soucy, he's had both really good and really bad stretches this season. So, yeah, we definitely need to go get someone. We've been saying this all season again, whether it's Marcus Pettersson, whether it's someone more defensive. We just need somebody, we can't depend. I love Eric Brandstrom, but like you look at the other depth pieces on this team and it's just like, we can't depend on Tyler Myers to be our best defenseman if our top two defensemen are injured. We just can't. We can't depend on Vinny Desharnais or Derek Forbort to play top 4 minutes for us. We just can't. And obviously, hopefully, if people are getting injured, they're not Quinn Hughes and Filip Hronek. But God forbid, if they are the ones getting hurt in the future as well, we need someone who can step in for them and, not make us freaking crap our pants every time they make a breakout pass or try to defend a 2-on-1.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we talked about. Your bottom six, like the depth on this roster is what we highlighted coming into the season. Did they make the right choices with what they did in the offseason to let a guy like Zadorov walk, right? That was part of that trade, brought in Danton Heinen and DeBrusk and those guys. Trade in air quotes, obviously. Your free agency swap. But we highlighted that and we looked at the blue line and we were like, nothing here fills me with the warm and fuzzies. This looks like a top two and a bottom two, but we need to find a middle two. And I don't think you're going to be able to easily find a middle two, but you're going to hopefully get that 5 that can step into a 4 role, and do just fine. So it's going to take some work from the boys in the front office. But I think some scouting, some analytics, and some hope, right? Obviously, the Elias Lindholm trade didn't work out, really, in my opinion. I don't think he really benefited either him nor the Canucks. So hopefully second time's the charm.
Yeah, so I'll say as far as Lindholm and Zadorov go, Lindholm was actually pretty good in the playoffs, if I recall properly. He was not good in the regular season. He was god-awful in the regular season. But he was excellent. Oh, another Canucks goal. Jake DeBrusk.
Speaking of
4-1. There we go. But as I was saying, he was pretty good in the playoffs, and I was happy with him in the playoffs, but it just didn't make sense to keep him. And you look at how Zadorov and Lindholm are doing in Boston, and, there's definitely some relief that we didn't keep those guys, some buyer's remorse. Those guys are not doing well. Zadorov as well. Like, I love Zadorov, but he's not a $6 million defenseman.
Absolutely not. Oh my God, that's what they paid him?
Yeah.
They paid him $6 million? Are you kidding me?
We almost paid him $6 million. So again, there's a level of relief there that we didn't spend so much on him. And, you look at what they're paying Lindholm and Zadorov, and you compare it to what we're paying Kiefer Sherwood, Jake DeBrusk, and Derek Forbort or whatever defenseman you want to use. We saved a ton of money and we got a lot more goals out of it. So that's what I'll say about that is certainly, like, it sucks we couldn't keep them, but they kind of haven't been playing their best this year. And there was obviously rumors of Zadorov back to Vancouver, but if that were to happen, they'd need to definitely retain some money there. I don't think I'd want him above $4 million. And again, he is signed for quite a few years as well.
And he's got a no movement clause. So if he doesn't want to go back to Vancouver, he doesn't have to. So I love that. I think something needs to change there. I love the guys having protection like that, but good Lord, every player in the league has protection at this point. So, and by the way, it's a 6x5, so he's only making $5 million. So soften the blow a little bit.
I swapped that. Yeah.
Still an overpayment, but just a little bit. Don't want to be publishing false news here on the podcast.
Yes.
But
No
you look
news.
at your you look at your bottoms game scores, right? We look at the bottom 10 game scores of I've talked about this website, Hockey Stat Cards, and it gives you everything in a really solid number. Elite players are good to great players are above a 1. Elite players are above a 1.5, and if you get a guy above a 2, it's probably McDavid. But you look at the worst performing players on the team here are in the negatives, actually. So they're actually hurting you every time they're out there. And I just read through the bottom 10, and we're just going to start at the top, and we're going to just skip over guys that aren't defensemen. We're going to go with number 1, Noah Juulsen. Number 2, Vincent Desharnais. Number 4, Carson Soucy. Number 5, Eric Brandstrom. Number 7, Tyler Myers. All of those guys have negative game scores, which means they are negatively impacting the game for the team they play for when they're out there. I'm sorry, but that's what, 5 of your defense right there?
Yeah.
That's not good. And especially for a team that's top 10 in expected goals against, in a positive way. Something's got to give there, right? Your forwards are doing a lot, which is probably why I'd say that your forwards aren't scoring. So that's at least my guess. So correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, we've got a good defensive forward unit. Again, that's why players like JT Miller will stick out as well when they're not being defensively aware, is because everyone else is doing such a good job. PD is an amazing defensive center. Teddy Bluger is a great defensive center. Pius Suter is good defensively. Even some of our wingers are good defensively. It's a strong defensive team backed by excellent goaltending. In terms of the forwards. Sorry, when I say strong defensive team, I mean a good two-way forward team. As Ryan just outlined, the defense are not fucking good outside of Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, he's got a 1.75 game score, by the way. That is crazy good.
Oh my God. Oh, can you see does it say Eric Brandstrom's game score by chance?
Negative 0.04. So not good.
Yeah. So literally no one is good.
Yeah, so by the way, the top game scorers in the league, Quinn Hughes is 10th. 10th best game scorer in the league.
Nice.
The number 1 game scorer is Nikita Kucherov at 2.11. Kirill Kaprizov is 2.05, and then Leon Draisaitl at 1.94. So just frame of reference for you there. There's not many. Connor McDavid's at 1.85. So there's not many players above 1.5, and Quinn Hughes is one of those players.
Yeah. No, everyone knows he's a game changer. He is pretty much done this rebuild for Canucks. Obviously, it helps. Pettersson's a great player. Miller great acquisition. They've done lots of great things. But if you don't have your big corner piece, and you look at all the best teams in the league, they all have someone.
Yes.
Even if they're not as prominent. Look at the Canes. You have Aho isn't maybe as prominent as other players, but or even I guess now it's turning into Natchez, who's having a wonderful season. But all the top teams have someone.
Yep.
And I think that Quinn Hughes has really shown he is that someone for the Canucks.
All right, one more little tangent because this just jumped out to me while I'm staring at the website. The top single game performance in the NHL this season. Can you guess who it is? I'll give you one guess.
Is that a Jake DeBrusk?
No, it's not. It is Rasmus Dahlin with a 7.91 game score.
Holy crap. 7.9.
Yeah, that's that game against the Islanders where he, I believe, had 4 assists that night and was just a force. So, but I think we'll look for Vancouver to continue to this ride accumulate points. I don't want to say ride a hot streak after they've lost 3 games going into the Sharks game. I know 2 of them were in overtime, but they were 2-1-2 over the last 5 coming into today against Seattle. So Seattle, Calgary, Seattle, Nashville, Montreal. You guys need to pick up a lot of points there. So, Abhi, it's the holiday season. And in the spirit of the holiday season, I'd like to give a gift to both the Buffalo Sabres and the Vancouver Canucks.
Ooh.
Who are you going to choose? Who's your favorite child? Who's going to open their present first?
You know what? I'm a gracious parents, you know what? Sabres, you guys can go ahead and open your child. I hope you're not opening your children. Open your present first.
All right. The Sabres look into their stocking, and what do they find? 13 extra games tacked onto their season. to make up for that 13-game losing streak. And Rasmus Dahlin is healthy for all of them. And all the points count. It's like taking a quiz twice and the professor takes the highest of the two scores, or even the aggregate score. Take the aggregate points between those 13 games and actually give those to Sabres. Because I think if they had a do-over and they could have picked up, 3 wins even, we'd be right in the hunt for the postseason. It's just they need those games back, and it sucks that they're gone, and it's less than 1% to make the playoffs according to Money Puck. So, but hey, Merry Christmas, Sabres. You get an extra 13 games. I don't know if Sabres fans want the extra 13, but maybe for the points, they will.
Yeah. That's a lovely gift. You know what? That was very, very creative. I don't think the gift for the Canucks is going to be quite so creative, but perhaps maybe, you look at the 2 gifts and maybe you think it is the quote unquote better gift, but 13 extra games. I'd like to know, how did you come up with 13 extra games specifically?
13 is a good number. It just felt right. It was just a good number. Lucky or unlucky. I don't know. Take your pick. One time it was unlucky. Maybe this time it will be lucky for the Sabres. So,
Okay.
All right.
Shall the Canucks take the bow off?
Yes. The Canucks unwrap their box. And what do they find? Whoa, did you have a gift?
Oh, sorry. Oh, you got both gifts for the kids?
I got both gifts. Yeah, no, it's okay. I listen, I get it. You've been busy. It's the least I could do for you guys.
So nice of you. Oh man, I cobbled something together. I had to get the scraps, get the coins out of the freaking hidden compartment. But
I came prepared. I ordered on Amazon a month ago.
Oh my goodness, look at you, so ahead. I'm a lucky partner.
And what do the Vancouver Canucks get? An all-expense-paid gift card to Dave & Buster's, so the team can go out and bond and put all this nonsense behind them and go win hockey games.
But Dad, I wanted a top 4 puck-moving defenseman with a health potion to keep our team healthy.
No, son, we got to be realistic here. Where you're going to Dave & Buster's, and Petey and Miller are playing skee ball until they're over whatever the deal is.
But Dad, I want Rasmus Anderson.
That was too much this year. It's been a tough year, so. But honestly, I think if the morale in the locker room gets right, we're done with this Miller Patterson nonsense. The conversation from Quinn Hughes and Tocchet versus what Patterson and Miller were saying about it, like Quinn Hughes and Tocchet were like, yeah, we're managing it, and then Miller and Patterson were like, yeah, there's nothing. That just feels a little different. It's a little off. So I think there clearly is something, but Patterson and Miller just want to put it behind them. So they're going to Dave & Buster's. They're going to have a couple Diet Pepsis and play some skee ball and hopefully win a stuffed teddy bear they can share.
Love that. Thanks, Dad.
There you go. But that's all I have. I don't know if you got anything else, Abby. I think it's been a very fun one here, despite the Sabres. Yeah, the Sabres win, right? The Sabres win, and it doesn't mean anything. Vancouver's winning, and it means something. So we'll have fun talking about it. I'm excited to talk about the Four Nations tournament coming up. I'm obviously looking forward to the time there is no hockey for the Sabres. And go Canucks, go. Get healthy. Just get healthy and stay healthy, gosh darn it. The last thing I want to see is Hronek come back and then Besser go out or something stupid like that. Stay healthy, guys. You're a good team. Absolutely. You're fun to watch. Love the building. Love the unis. So stay healthy.
Yep. And on a side note, we'll say, since this is the episode after, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to everyone. And as we're heading into the new year, Happy New Year to everyone as well. Wishing everyone success and wishing us a nice, strong, consistent podcast and heading into the new year.
Yes, it is going to be much more consistent. That is a New Year's resolution. And to tease our next episode, we will talk about New Year's resolutions for both the Sabres and the Canucks. And I'm not going to set the goal for the Canucks because, well, I already got them a gift. They can figure out what to do with it after that. So that's going to be an expensive Dave & Buster's gift card. But that is all the time we have for this one. Oh, make sure to leave a like if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're everywhere, guys. So hit us up on Twitter at The Expansion Bros. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Peace.